Welcome back, everyone. Again, we're going to start our afternoon research sessions in the analytics and safety area. And I would like to introduce Dr. Christian Grant and Dr. Dean Hogan from OU on learner data management.
Thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Christian Grant and I'm here with Dean Hogan. Our project is learner data management. So first, before we start, I want to thank our stakeholders and everyone here. So there is a great energy in the room, and you guys are really excited about the project, and it's pumping us up as well. So I want to thank Katrina Harrison and Dr. Hucks, everyone we've met so far. So our project, just like everyone else's, sounds like is changing as we have more conversations. So hopefully we'll continue that going on. So let me describe what this project is. So it's learner data management. So we've had a lot of talks about the training modules and developing them, and there have been a lot. So we've heard deployed across the FAA. So we're not trying to create another module. What we're looking at is the data that's produced from the training. And so what we're trying to do is understand what formats the data are in, where they're stored, and who looks at them. So after you do training, or is it just stored and put somewhere in a file cabinet? Or does somebody, when there's an audit, who looks at them? What do they look at? What's their process? And we're gonna chase down those people, try and find out what's important after the data is stored. And so our goal is to develop a system to make it easy to get information when they need it and understand it. So right now that's me being totally optimistic about the underpinnings of how it works, but I think we have a great team. We're already tracking down the right people with a lot of help. So that's the quick version of the project, and we're developing that now. We have a list of students that we're going through to help us do this type of development. So that's the project. Let me introduce myself as well. So my name is Christian Grant. I just finished my PhD from the University of Florida, so I've been here at Go Gators. Yeah, awesome. And this week too, yeah, well, Go Gators anyway. Yeah, so I did my PhD in computer science, and my area was in databases and text analytics. So really databases and machine learning. What's the interface for that? Whenever you have a lot of text and you want to learn from it and do analysis on it and process large amounts, that's what my focus is on. And so both of us are working on projects that are really related to this work, and it's going to help. One of the ones that I mentioned last time that I'll mention again is it up there? Yeah, so working with the USDA, working on their data management. So the USDA has a plant here in El Reno. So what they do is they breed and build cows. They try and understand how to get cows or bulls, cows and calves. How do you create them so you can get to your burgers, right? So you can get your meat and also plants. So in the past, they've built these giant cows with the muscles. You've probably seen them, but what they've seen, it's really hard to create. Or I don't want to offend any meat eaters here, or vegetarians. But when the cow's ready to be taken for production, to get meat out of it, the time it takes to grow to the time it takes to be slaughtered, that time should be as small as possible, right? So if you have a big, strong cow that works really well, it just takes too long. So they're trying to improve their process. And so through that, they want to make sure the cows are treated properly. So they track everything. They track what they eat every day. Some cows are on different diets, wheat, grass, and different species. And what's happening is you're creating almost like a healthcare record for animals, right? So what we're doing in this project is developing a healthcare management system for scientists. So for them to manage all the cows they have, thousands of cows, and over the course of a lifetime. So it's a lot of data, messy data, and herdsmen are going in and taking that data down. So that applies really well to FAA. So if you think of flying cows no, but there's in the same way we're dealing with data over time, and we want to integrate it to make it auditable. And one of the pushes for this USDA project, and the reason I mention it is there's passed an Animal Welfare Act. So if you hear about anything going wrong with animals, they want to find out where that animal came from, what happened to it, what did you feed it, and why is it in the shape that it can. So they want to know the provenance of that animal. Where did it come from? What's its mother? And that helps for sales too, and as well as emergencies. The same way with training. We want to find out if there's an accident happened, where they get their training, where's it from, and right now it's really hard to get that information. And so I think this project will help with that. So also, I'll let Dean Haugen speak.
So yes, I am Dean Haugen, as I've been introduced a couple of times, and I didn't just get my PhD, I got mine back in 1998, so almost 20 years ago now. I've been doing a number of things in the area of artificial intelligence, which is my general research area, particularly robotics, machine learning, and multi-agent systems. And when I'm at the center of those three research areas, that's where the core of my research is. So if I can have multiple robots running around in the world, learning about what's happening around them, sharing information with each other, and learning from that information and accomplishing a task, that's really at the core of my research. And I think that's pertinent to what we're looking at here, because one of the things going on if you have a multi-robot system is that they have to be able to share information with each other, right? They have to be able to send that information to each other. They have to be able to pull that information in. They have to be able to correlate that information and make sense out of it. So if we've got a number of different databases, a number of different ways of collecting data about what people are learning, how can we make sure all those different systems are able to actually talk to each other, understand each other, and see what's going on? So helping to design those back-end systems so they can pull that information in from all these cool learner modules that are being designed, all these interfaces for data entry that are out there. How can we pull that data in and correlate it and get it working? I do a lot of very theoretical work in areas like evolution, learning, nurturing, mutualism, speciation, and risk. But I also do a lot of very practical applied systems, starting even back in my graduate school days at the University of Minnesota, working with some various state agencies that were doing geographic information systems, sent those out, fielded those systems, get a lot of people using those systems, and also finding out what changes we need to make in those systems as they get fielded so that we can actually make them more useful to those end users. Also continuing on, after I got my PhD in 98, I stayed in Minnesota for another 3 years as the Associate Director for the Center for Distributed Robotics there, as well as an assistant professor in the School of Computer Science there. And one of the projects that we worked on, in fact, the primary project that I was focused on was a big Department of Defense, DARPA-funded project. And again, we had user interfaces, we had fielded systems. We wanted to make sure that these were actually going to get used by the people they were intended to be used by. Coming here to University of Oklahoma in 2001, one of the projects that I worked on here that was a very applied sort of project was OU's first iPhone application. We were one of the first universities out there with one. We got beat to the goal line by a couple of others. Stanford had one before we did, for example. But we were one of the first ones out there with an iPhone application, and it was something, again, we had to go out in the field and survey our potential users, find out what they were going to want from their system to make sure it was designed for them and make sure that it was going to be able to run on the systems that they had. More recently, myself and Kristen together working for WNI, that's Weather News International. It's a Japanese-based company, although they have their Oklahoma Innovation Center here on the OU campus, which is doing some of their more cutting-edge sort of research. And we are working through that Oklahoma Innovation Center to come up with a system for ship captains who are operating their ship in coastal waters. So this coastal assistant that's mentioned there, this project is, again, looking at bringing in data from multiple sources, presenting it to people in ways that they find useful, and also having that system itself learn from its interaction with the people so it can be more efficient and more effective for those people. And a lot of those things, I think, are going to be valuable for figuring out how to do this particular system that we're looking at for the learner data management, and in particular focusing on the air traffic controller training. And we know that there's a lot of different training going on out there, as was mentioned, and a lot of different record keeping going on. How can we integrate those records and make sure that we can detect what really belongs here, and how does that correspond to something in a different field? So again, I want to wrap up our presentation by, again, thanking the organizers of this meeting and thanking the attendees of this meeting that we're able to talk to find out who those key people are that we need to talk to in the FAA and in industry partnerships, and look at how we can actually make a practical fielded system that can pull this data together, integrate it, make sense of it, and in the long term, hopefully actually then use some of this machine learning on the back end of this thing to figure out this is being really effective over here. This is perhaps not being as efficient with its resources as it could be over there. But until you get that data together, there's no way to really even start to answer those kind of questions. So we're hoping this is a 12-month project, but we're hoping to design this in such a way that can be built on in the long term and be very successful for the FAA's long-term goals, getting the people the training they need, getting them to the positions that they need in a timely and effective manner. So thank you all.